Take a look at the recent results for Rory McIlroy. Deep runs at API and the match play, nibbling on the edges of contention at that PGA Championship, but relatively quiet for the most part of late for the four-time major championship winner. With more, let's go out to Dublin, Ohio. Welcome in our own Todd Lewis. T-Lew, you caught up with Rory earlier today. What did you learn?
Well, I feel like he's a little more optimistic with his golf swing. You documented the fact that the last couple of months he has not played well, missed the cut of the Masters, did play the weekend at Quail Hollow, just cracked the top 50 there. But in his last start, the PGA Championship, he did have a top 10 finish. And then after that finish, he worked on his game last week prior to arriving here in Central Ohio. And I did catch up with Rory, and I asked him to give me his current status in regards to his game.
Feel a little better. I think it's always a process. I don't think you meet one golfer that isn't working on some part of their swing. So whether that's at our level or at any level. So, but it's better. I just wasn't happy with how things went at Oak Hill, and I was really fighting the club face a lot, and fearful of missing it one way or another. So I needed to sort of address that. And yeah, I've done some really good work over the last week. Michael Bannon was in town, and we just did a little bit of a deep dive into, okay, what's going wrong? Why is it making me feel this way? What I need to do to rectify it? And we spent a really good week, and I worked really hard. And whether that bears fruit this week or not, I'm on a 4-week stretch here, but hopefully it starts to bed in for me. And it's a pretty big run of golf coming up, so it's a good time to start playing well.
Yeah, golf is golf. It can be frustrating, but is there a joy in trying to figure it out and straighten your game?
I think there is. Yeah, I think there's a joy in when something does click, and you've put the time and the effort in, and you feel like you're seeing like little mini rewards for it. So yeah, it's a journey and a process, and I think we're constantly on that journey. I don't think that ever really ends. So, but it's been good to just sort of get back to some fundamentals and really work hard on some things. And as I said, I felt like I had a good week last week, and we'll see how it goes this week.
And finally, you have mentioned and had some undertones of making sure that you have work-life balance on and off the golf course. In your opinion, has that improved over the last few weeks or months?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and it's not, it's no one else's fault but my own. And I think just not tying myself up in knots about everything that's going on in the game of golf right now, and just sort of coming to the realization that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. So, maybe just not investing so much mental energy into it. And I only have myself to blame for that. That's certainly no one else's fault. So, but I think just coming to that realization a little bit has helped me to, just put my priorities in the right order and go from there.
Now, following up on what Rory was talking about, look, when you're Rory McIlroy and you're playing all over the world, you're going to spend some time away from your family. And that was really the case, especially over the last year and a half, spending time away from the family as he was trying to lead from a player perspective the PGA Tour's competitive battle against LIV Golf. Now he's kind of stepped away from that, unburdened himself, in so many words, of being that voice for the PGA Tour out here trying to fight LIV Golf, and he feels like he has a little more mental and emotional freedom, so he seems to be in a better headspace coming into this tournament, guys.
Well, the players are still fighting, Todd, in the sense that every time there's a Players Advisory Council meeting, they're normally going back and forward about something. There was one last night. Can you give us some details on what was discussed?
Yeah, a very interesting subject was discussed at the PAC meeting last night. In attendance, Mike Wan, who is USGA CEO, and Martin Slumbers, who is the chief executive of the R&A. Essentially, those two gentlemen were there representing their bodies to present their proposal of rolling back the golf ball, which would be a local rule here on the PGA Tour if the tour decides to actually acquire this. Now, I can tell you, I've talked to a lot of players ever since this proposal came out, and a large majority of the players are against rolling the golf ball back on the PGA Tour. Rory McIlroy is actually sympathetic to what the R&A and the USGA are proposing, saying that, especially from Martin Slumber's perspective, that the footprints are getting too large as far as the golf course is becoming too big. And Slumbers has to answer to a lot of other countries, much more than Mike Wan. Obviously, he just sticks with the United States. But, Scandinavian countries and other countries that are environmentally sound and want to make sure that trees aren't cut down and so on. So Martin Slumbers has that on his shoulders, and Rory is sympathetic to that. But again, a lot of these players do not want to roll the golf ball back. Here's one interesting thing to think about that a tour player told me today. If the tour decides to not go with the USGA and the R&A and go back to a ball that, or go to a ball rather, that has reduced flight, then that means the manufacturers will not produce the balls. So if the USGA and the R&A want to have their championships with these balls that have been rolled back, they will have to produce them. Do they have the funding to do that? So there's a lot, pardon the pun, of balls in the air in regards to what's going on right now on the PGA Tour. But of course, the tour and the membership will put their proposal together, and then after the comment period is over, they will present that to the USGA and the R&A.
Todd Lewis on the scene in Dublin, Ohio. Busy time in the game. I'm no body language expert, but seeing Rory McIlroy with Todd Lewis today, he seemed to have come out of his master's stupor a little bit. I thought he looked completely exasperated a few weeks ago in Charlotte ahead of Quail Hollow. He looks like a little more life in the eyes of the four-time major champ.
And it's easy to try to figure out what put that light in the eyes. Do you think it didn't affect him, Brooks Koepka, winning the PGA Championship in the manner that Koepka did? I mean, these are a couple of silverbacks here. They were both tied on 4 major championships. So if Rory was somewhat off kilter, or, the swing obviously was an issue, but if he wasn't really feeling the fire beneath him, I imagine that seeing Brooks Koepka win in the manner that Brooks Koepka won at Oak Hill will have an effect on him as well. And it's true. I mean, he has, as he talked to Todd Lewis there, he's been struggling with his golf swing for quite a while. The results that we posted up there a little while ago have reflected that he really doesn't seem to know where the club face is. And he worked with Michael Bannon from Wednesday through Monday when he flew up to Ohio. They were working down at the Grove in Florida. And Rory's never been a particularly technical guy. And when you're playing well and being successful, as he was last year, he's obviously won the FedEx Cup. He then immediately moved over to Europe, played their way through there until he won the race to Dubai as well. And so there's not really an off-season in there, but success also does not encourage you to start looking for what's wrong in your golf swing. And I don't think he's really taken a deep dive on his golf swing in quite a while. He was just kind of riding that wave. Well, that wave isn't really cresting anymore, so he's got to look for something. I wouldn't expect it this week. This has never historically been a great venue for Rory McIlroy. I think he's probably going in there looking for positive signs, not necessarily the win, although I'm sure he'd take it, but he's just got to look for positive signs this week.